Hey guys, happy Friday. It is it's another time. It's time for another episode on our Heat Press for Profit podcast channel. So welcome. Thank you guys for taking time out of your day to listen and join in our conversations. If you're watching with us live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, make sure you shout out who you are, where you're from, and of course, you guys know I love to know your business name. So make sure you pop that in the comments. That way we can say hi. First and foremost, do not forget that you can ask questions during our live. Danny is going to be our guest, so I just spoiled that, but it is great to have an expert join us as a guest on all things decorating. So make sure you utilize this time so we can get those questions answered. Now, this podcast is designed to have conversations with apparel decorators just like you and industry experts that can have an impact on your business. I already told you who our guest was, and that is Danny Marcario. He is with Stahls, and he is a strategic account manager of our Western states. Now, Danny has been with us a little over 5 years, but he has been in the industry much longer. So, Danny, thank you for taking time out of your Friday. Now, the question is, tell us a little bit about Danny. Who is Danny?
Well, first of all, it's Friday. We're going to talk about heat printing and improving your business. And I get to do this with the great Kelly Walters. I'm excited to be here. So thanks for having me. So, I started in the industry years ago. I started in 1999. And that was in the sporting goods industry and did that for about 17 years. And then I was in the sublimation business for a while, and then been with Stahls for about 5 years. So I've gotten to see a lot of different decoration methods over the years and see things evolve, and it's pretty exciting to see where we're at now.
It really is crazy how things can change what feels like by the month, but over the years, how much our industry has really, really evolved in decoration methods. So today's topic, guys, we are talking about how to recognize when to outsource for your heat printing business. And I actually really enjoy this topic. And one of the reasons is because I am all about growth and finding growth that is both efficient and effective for you and your business. And with outsourcing, sometimes I feel like there could be a negative connotation about giving somebody else to produce your jobs. But today we are going to be talking all things positive about outsourcing and why it's really, really beneficial for you and your business. So what is outsourcing, Danny, and how does it work in our industry?
So the best way to describe it, and there's several reasons, but the best way to describe it is that you've hit a capacity or a constraint in your business that it actually makes more sense to put it in the hands of somebody else to help you than to try to produce it yourself. And those reasons vary. It spans a lot of different ways, like maybe you don't own a heat press, or maybe there's not enough space where you're at, or it could be that you don't have enough training in heat printing and the confidence level isn't there yet. Could be that you don't have enough operators, like you have a couple machines and your operators are doing some small jobs and you have this big job that's come in and you just don't have the people to do it. Could be an art constraint. This one comes up a lot where you could actually put it in the hands of a decorator and say, hey, I need help with my art and my decoration. Could be cut specs, right? It could be something where it's something that you sent to Stahls and they said, hey, you're just outside of our cut specs. And that decorator might be able to help you cut it because they might have a different capability. So there's several reasons as to why, but the answer is that you've hit a roadblock that it just makes more sense to get it in somebody else's hands.
That's a simplified version, right? So I think it's really, really important to recognize there's a lot of people in our industry that are solo. There's no other employees. They're doing the artwork, they're cutting, they're weeding, or they're ordering the graphics, they're doing the production, they're doing the invoicing. It is one person for every role. And there's a ton of graphic artists out there in our industry that saw potential. They realized that they had a skill for design and really taking what they are visualizing and bringing it to life. But maybe production isn't their forte. So they can sit there and capitalize on being extremely skilled in the design industry, but then push that production side of the world to somebody that is much more efficient or skilled than what they are. And I think that's really, really important to notice that outsourcing doesn't mean that you can't do something. It's just giving you another arm or a leg to really kind of keep running and moving forward. So let's talk about finding a contract decorator who can outsource your business, because like you said, outsourcing could be sending in your art and having somebody else produce transfers for you because you don't have the equipment or you don't have the time. So if somebody is trying to figure out how to make this work, they know that they are coming to a bottleneck situation and they need help without hiring and bringing on somebody else to pay. How do we find or come in contact with a contract decorator?
Well, I think there's several ways. The one premier is Stahls DFC, and I think that's one of your first go-tos. It's an opportunity to reach out to them, and they do amazing things there. But there's also decorators in our decorator network. But really, when you're reaching out, is that you're trying to find somebody that knows what they're doing, right? You have to have somebody that has the right equipment, the right knowledge. They have a track record, they have a reputation, and they're not only going to help you with what you need, but they're also going to kind of help secure the business that you're handing to them, right? So you really want to vet your contract decorator and understand where they come from and where they can help you go.
That's so important because quality is key, or I'm a believer that quality is key. Price isn't key. It's quality. You want those customers to return, you want referral business, and you want that trust from those customers that you are going to produce exactly what you say you're going to produce. And when it comes to quality, it's super important to be comfortable with a contract decorator, because at the end of the day, it's like you're handing over your baby to somebody else and they're babysitting it until it comes back. I just used a mom analogy, but I think it kind of works because at the end of the day, if somebody is doing the complete fulfillment of producing a logo and putting it on your garment or accessory and then shipping that to your customers or shipping it back to you to ship, you want to make sure that those products are going to turn out exactly like you envision it and tell your customer, that it is going to be accomplished in that area. With a decorator network, we have vetted, decorators that we feel very confident that they have large capacity to be able to take on a certain amount of orders. And we have built that connection with those decorators. So if something can't be done at DFC, then we have this chain of people that we can reach out to across the states. And whether or not you use, somebody from our decorator network, find somebody that's close in your area down the street, build a relationship with them. And you never know, you could actually become partners in helping each other get something done. If it's a slow time for you, utilize somebody that needs to outsource, and maybe you become the person that's outsourcing for them, but you keep it in your community, in your area. And I really look at that as a win-win for everybody. So Danny, when somebody is outsourcing, there's a lot of time, the Amazon time, right? The 2-day, 3-day. Do you have any recommendations for something getting bogged down or not being produced when it's supposed to be produced? What's that conversation, and how should you, kind of stand your ground with a decorator, an outsource?
Yeah. So just to make sure I understand the question, so you're saying like if you're trying to get something turned quickly, or tell me what you mean.
Yeah, turned quickly, or something where something doesn't come back really as the correct expectation. And another one is somebody using products that maybe you didn't know they were going to be using and it was supposed to be something else.
Gotcha. Yeah. So there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle when choosing this decorator, right? You got to make sure that, like we talked about, the right equipment and reputation. But you have to remember that more often than not, you're sending your product right to this decorator. They're receiving it. So you got to make sure it lands there. They've received it and that they're going to decorate it with what you've asked them to decorate it with. They're going to turn around and produce it in the right amount of time, and they're going to ship it out to your customer in a lot of cases. Sometimes it's a pickup situation where you go get it, but many times they're shipping it to your customer. So you have to have that confidence that they're going to do all the things that they've said they're going to do. And then when you're choosing the product that you're going to want to put on it, you want to have something you're familiar with. You want to know, hey, if I've chosen silicone dye block, I want to make sure they use silicone, or I want to make sure that they use glitter, or whatever you've chosen, to make sure that they do that correctly. And that's why we encourage people to work with Stahls DFC or with our decorator network, because they're familiar with these things. They know these products. They're using Hottronics equipment. They have all these puzzle pieces put together, and they have their stuff together to make sure that you're going to get your product back to your customer the right way every time.
That's such an important note for those of you that are considering outsourcing, or maybe you're considering becoming a contract decorator yourself, or you're looking at options. The products that you use on a daily basis, or maybe you don't do any heat printing in your current business, which you should, because heat printing is life. But if you don't, that's okay. Find somebody that can do it for you. But it's really important to make sure that they are using the products that you trust as well. Maybe you trust them as decorators, and whatever you are working out on pricing, you need to make sure that what you are paying is actually aligning with what you are getting. So I think that's really, really important to keep in mind. If you are an eat, sleep, breathe Stahls, then make sure you find somebody that is going to use Stahls and Transfer Express products. That way you know exactly what is being put on the garments, and something isn't saying, yeah, it's silicone dye block, when it's not really silicone dye block, but it looks like silicone. So that's just a note for people to kind of keep in mind. Let's pivot just a little bit to community. I mentioned that, you could find somebody down the street, in your town, in your neighborhood, wherever you are, to really kind of buddy up with Slow Times, capitalize on that for each other. Have you noticed that that's happening more and more in our industry?
Yeah, so the community of heat printing is growing. I think more and more people are understanding that it's not a secondary option anymore. It's not the last option. It is one of the primary options now. And the community is starting to understand that and share with each other what their capabilities are. And that community is a big deal, because you might, here's an example. So you might be working with a decorator that maybe they're doing heat printing, but they've also hit a constraint, or maybe they don't have a piece of equipment, or they need help from another decorator. If they have that community built, they could actually go to another decorator and say, hey, this is what I need produced. Can you help me with this? And then that decorator you have the relationship with is able to help you, right? So those businesses kind of help each other out to build the heat printing community and make everybody function, right? And it could be something as simple as, hey, I'm out of silicone. Do you have a couple rolls of white I could use to get through the job, right? Or, hey, my print cut system went down. I'm out a couple of days. Can you help me print these so I can get this taken care of? And then it reciprocates, right? You have these businesses help each other to build that community. And so it not only in heat printing, but just overall, the business community in decoration grows and builds off of itself, and heat printing just gets better and better from there.
I'm a firm believer in community over competition, and it's great to have a little competition here and there, and who's getting what and who's growing and doing this. But at the end of the day, if you are running a business, it is very, very powerful to have a community that you can go to for questions and answers. And how do I do this? Who has some extra X, Y, and Z? I don't know a decorator that has not ran out of material and been in a slight panic to get it in 24 hours. I think any shop I've ever been in, there's always been somebody that's like, oh, we just ran out of so and whatever it was, and I've got to have these jobs done in 48 hours. So build that connection. Go with that community. And I'm going to talk about Heat Press for Profit, the group on Facebook. I always talk in our podcast, and it's because it is a wonderful community that we have built. I mean, even Skip, that was on he was a guest on our show last week. He mentioned that people have reached out to him for completion of art, or, hey, can you do this? Because I know you can do it and produce quality transfers. And, he's using Stahls products, but he has built that relationship with the community and that Heat Press for Profit group that if he wants to, now he has the opportunity to take on doing a little bit of fulfillment for other people. And that is outsourcing. So find that community and just continue to grow. Now, there's a whole other side of outsourcing where if you are that person that is outsourcing left and right, it's time to take a look at your business and decide whether or not you are missing money by sending that job to someone else. So, Danny, how would one recognize when it is time to outsource or really bring it in-house? We had somebody at our apparel decorator summit call it in-house and outhouse. So bringing it in-house versus outhouse, but in-house, what does that look like? Because sometimes it can be confusing. Maybe you feel like you have more time on your hand, but you're losing money by sending it to outsource. So what's something to look for?
Yeah. So again, it comes down to a capacity or a constraint, right? And I think if you're the business that is looking to outsource, eventually there's going to be a light bulb that goes on that, hey, I've sent these jobs out. I've done this for 6 months or a year, and I paid this person to help me, and they did. But how can I capitalize on that profit, right? How can I put this in my hands? Or maybe you can segment it. And here's an example of that. So let's say you've sent out all of your big jobs to the contract decorator, and that's flowing and working well. But now, because you've created this business channel and heat printing has gotten better and better for you, you might be starting to see jobs that are, say, 50 pieces or 100 pieces or something like that. And now it makes sense for you to have a couple heat presses or a heat press to do those smaller jobs while you're still outsourcing the bigger ones, right? And then as you grow and you build revenue and you put more money into your business and you gain that knowledge, then you get to a point where, hey, now I've actually got the capacity and I don't have the constraints anymore, and I can actually produce all of this. I can make all of it happen, right? And so I see this as a stepping stone for people to not only get what their customers need, to never say no, but to also grow your business with ways of outsourcing and getting it into the hands that they can put that money in your pocket to help you grow in that particular category.
Yeah, I think one thing that you brought up was you have a customer that is creating samples, and the samples are selling, the samples win, and then from there, outsourcing those orders. That way they can continue to work on getting new business or coming up with new ideas and designs. But instead of spending the production time, they're outsourcing it. But the caveat to that is if you do a cost analysis and you see how much you're outsourcing, and this isn't going to be for every single person, but how much would it cost to amplify all of the equipment that you have to actually hire somebody and start bringing those costs in-house, it's time to really understand where your money is going and what you're spending it on versus reinvesting in yourself. I think that is one thing that sometimes easy is too easy, but you got to choose, right? That's the beautiful thing about our industry is that there's options.
Right. And so sometimes the profit that you're missing, it actually still makes sense to outsource it, right? Like maybe it's a 20% difference when you add up all your costs and everything to outsource it versus doing it yourself. What that does is it allows you to continue to fill your pipeline and get out there and sell and put your resources in other directions. So there is a point where that profit margin, where it makes sense, but I think people need to understand where their time actually supersedes the percentage that they could be earning, right? Maybe 20%, maybe it's 30
Absolutely.
or 50%, wherever that number is. But people need to understand their time is just as valuable as anything else. And if it helps you sell more and get more put through in your business, maybe that 20% or 30% is worth it.
It is really important to look at your numbers where if you have say a 60% margin, I don't know, maybe you have more, maybe you have less, but then when you're outsourcing something, you only have 20%. What's another 20, right? Like instead of 60, maybe it becomes 40 because you're trying to pay off equipment, and that's how you're, really looking at your numbers. So analyze it and utilize, what you can around you. And of course, I'm going to plug it again, but if you're not quite sure and you're looking for some direction, go to your community. So that Heat Press for Profit group, there are tons of questions all the time about transfers, apparel. I have seen more and more questions on there about or blank wholesale vendor recommendations because people are looking for, something they haven't seen before. Danny, before we wrap up, do you have any tips, last minute tips for somebody that is just trying to figure out, if outsourcing is for them or really hit home on something that you just need to pay attention to?
I really think that you need to look at your business and make sure that you are in a position where, you don't want to say no, right? You want every opportunity to be able to come in, especially if it's a profitable one. And right now in the market, and it's continuing, and I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon, is some of the highest profits are in heat printing, right? When you look at it and really analyze what can be done with all these different decoration methods, the profits are so high that you might actually find that it makes more sense to move it to heat printing than what you're outsourcing to, say, embroidery or to screen printing or DTG or some of these other methods that are out there. Now, those are never going to go away. They're always going to be around and they're always going to be part of the business. But there's plenty of situations where the screen print job that you sent that was 8 or 9 colors, right? And you do 100 of them, and the screen printer is going to charge you this much when you could have just sent it to the other decorator that can do it with, say, Ultracolor Max or Ultracolor Pro, and now your profit goes up 2 or 3 times because of the way it's really just understanding that profit and your opportunities. And I think that the other thing is a different way of thinking, and people are not quite understanding the outside of the box way of thinking you can do with heat transfers, right? So they're starting to understand what flex style can do and what, say, print stitch can do, right? Because it takes it outside of the box of what you're able to do with some of these other traditional methods. And once you understand that and you start to see the possibilities, then you need to put it in the hands of somebody that can help you with it. But I also, like we've talked about already, is that some of those opportunities are so great that you can segment it. You can make sure that you do some of it and they do some of it, right? Now, the keys to these things, to capture this business and get people to think differently and understand what you can do, is creating samples. And sometimes it makes sense to create the sample, put it in the customer's hands, get the job. They say they want to order 500 of something. You were able to create the sample and get it in their hands, and they're happy with it. And now you get to outsource it and write the PO and put it in the hands of the decorator, right? So here's an example. Like, let's say you're thinking outside of the box. You've got a great looking logo. It's got 25 colors in it and they want it embroidered. Well, that's probably not going to work, right? It's probably better to put it in flex style. Place an order for flex style, get your samples in, get your 5 pieces, press a couple, press a hat, a bag, and a piece of apparel, get it in front of that customer for that $45 investment, and then earn the order and put it in the hands of somebody that can do it for you, right? So it's a combination of different things. But I think the one thing I want to get across is don't say no and find a way to think outside of the box, because it will help you, especially if you have these decorators that have your back to make it happen.
Those are excellent tips. There was that was a statement packed with tips, and I think that was a great way of really just stating kind of what you can achieve, right, with outsourcing. Okay. I feel like you and I could talk about what you can do with your business, all day long when it comes to outsourcing, when to bring it in-house, going over the variables and cost analysis. But I do want to let everybody know that Danielle has posted how you can join our heat printing community. So the Heat Press for Profit link is in each platform. So whether you're watching Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, you should be able to find that in the comments and, of course, join. Now, if you haven't, make sure you subscribe to our show where we launch a new episode every week. And Danny, thank you so much for taking time out of this, soon to be holiday weekend, and be our guest on our channel.
Oh, thanks for having me. And that community that we're talking about is a great one. There's so many great things that I learned from that community. And there are plenty of us on there, not only the community of people that are great, but you've got a lot of experts and some of the reps on there that are there to help you too. So we're definitely looking forward to growing that community and being there to help. So thanks for having me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We'll do it again for sure. If you are looking to find a decorator that you can outsource, trust in your area or region, reach out to either your Stahls, Transfer Express, that group Stahl rep, account manager, call customer service. Ask in the Heat Press for Profit group, send us a DM. We will definitely make sure we get you to the right connection and right person that will be able to help you navigate on that whole process. And of course, if you're looking to utilize DFC, then you can still reach out to your rep and we'll make sure that you get taken care of. You guys have a wonderful Friday, have an even better weekend, and enjoy Labor Day. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.